All right, let's bring in our new Congressman, James Gallagher, in the 1st District, which we are still part of. And want to thank you for taking a Saturday morning and being with us, and welcome in.
No problem. Glad to be with you this morning, Kelly.
Yeah, I want to ask you about state split and Prop 50 and a couple of other things, but before we go much further, do you have any thoughts on Measure B?
I mean, look, I think it comes out of the, a very real concern about our elections, right? And that's why it got put on, the ballot. And, we're seeing that back in Washington, D.C. with the Save America Act, where we're saying, look, we need to make sure that, there's real integrity in the elections. Look, I mean, it's tough because we're under this, California regime, right, that at least under state law, doesn't really allow for us to do the things that I think we all like to do, right?
Yeah.
And so that's been the pickle that everybody's been in. That's why I think we need Save America Act. I think that's why it's so important that it passes, and that's what we're working to do, is to break that thing loose in the Senate, or, here recently we have a new strategy to force it in this reconciliation vote.
Yeah, where do we stand on that right now? Do you think it's going to come up for a vote in the Senate?
I do. I think this strategy with reconciliation is a good one, and it sort of forces their hands. And I don't know how much people really follow this and understand, but this, the Senate has this filibuster, rule that you can't really pass anything without 60 votes, right? However, reconciliation, is a budget process that under the rules could pass with 51 votes. So the idea is to put something on the Senate floor that they just can't say no to, and that we can get 51 votes on. And I think that that looks pretty good to basically send it over there and force their hand.
And just as a kind of a recap, or for those who maybe are not following it too closely, it would require what? Much like Measure B, it would require voter ID, but what else?
It requires voter ID and proof of citizenship. And, and also, we have that on the state ballot too. And we can talk about that more. But basically, Save America Act would ensure that every state has those fundamental requirements. That anybody voting, has to show an ID and has to show proof of citizenship. Has to prove that they are actually a citizen and eligible voter. Which is an 80-20 issue. I mean, it's common sense.
It is, and it's pretty bipartisan.
This should be the case.
It's pretty bipartisan among voters, I think, but just not among representatives for whatever reason.
Really by Democrats.
Democrats, right?
Politicians,
yes,
right? I think it's what it really is about. They don't want it because they like the situation the way it is. They like the gray area, and look, I think they're counting on illegal votes. To be quite frank, the politicians are. I think there's many Democrats, who are registered as Democrats, who think this is actually good government and good policy. Unfortunately, here in California, we're ruled by Democratic politicians who don't care about those things and like the system the way it is.
And you're talking about voter ID and citizenship and election fraud. What are your thoughts on what just happened in New Jersey? If it happened in New Jersey, I'm sure California probably has a similar situation. I'm sure other states do. It just hasn't actually been brought to light.
Look, I think we know, and there are people on those rolls that should not be on there. Illegal immigrants. We automatically, give illegal immigrants driver's license in the state.
Right, then they can register to vote.
We give them driver's licenses, and we have a system that automatically registers people to vote through, motor voter, through the DMV. So, is it very plausible that we have illegal immigrants on our voter rolls? Yes. And the key question is, hey, are they voting? And at least in New Jersey, they found that, there are.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of people that have actually voted that are not eligible voters, And so do we honestly think that here in California that's not going on? Of course it is, right? And, how widespread it is, we don't know. And that's the whole thing is that the issue that we've always been asking for is, can we just have a review? Can we just audit the rolls? Can we just go through that and make everyone assured that we don't have this issue, right? And of course, as you know, the federal government has asked for an audit to review those rolls, and Gavin Newsom and the Democratic politicians refused to let him do that. Refused to let the federal government do an audit of the rolls.
Yeah, and then the president, the president gave that speech last week, which basically called him out and on it, and then this New Jersey thing came out, proving that the president's right. But to hear the Democrats and Newsom, no, nothing to see here. Oh, it just proves that there is fraud, but we found it and we're taking care of it, and so it's no big deal.
They try to say that we're trying to stop people from voting, which of course is ridiculous.
Yeah,
right. We want everyone who's eligible to vote, right? And everyone should have that right, and it's not that hard to show ID. Of course, we do that all the time, right?
I know, even to go to Olive Garden now, apparently.
But these guys act like that would be, such an impediment, that somehow no one would be able to vote if they had to show ID is, of course, patently ridiculous.
And what are your thoughts on Newsom saying that speech that Donald Trump gave last week, that after that speech that we should invoke the 25th Amendment? I mean, where did that come from for that speech?
Newsom is a joke and a charlatan, and it's the most ridiculous thing I've heard. And this is also the guy who propped up Joe Biden, who clearly was incompetent, who clearly did have mild dementia at the very least, in his latter years, and yet was going around telling everybody, this guy's a master class. This guy's done amazing work. This guy is totally up to the job. Went along with the total cover-up of this guy's mental situation, and is now saying we should invoke the 25th Amendment. I mean, just save it, buddy. We're all tired of Gavin. He's a joke. He needs to go back to Marin and stay there and never come back into political office again.
What are your feelings about Steve Hilton's chances? Do you think he actually has a statewide chance in November?
I do. I think he does. I think he's making the case. It's tough in California, as we know. I mean, for a long time, at least the last 15 years, it kind of comes down to about a 60-40 number. A Republican candidate running gets about 40%, and the Democratic candidate gets 60% statewide. And there's, I think, different reasons for that. One, we lost a lot of, Hispanic voters over time. Another one is urban areas like San Francisco and LA have all the votes.
They have all the votes.
And they drown out a lot of our vote. But we do have, I think, issues with the system too, that we've just talked about. So you combine all those things, and that's where we currently sit. I think we could change that if we had one voter ID. It's going to be on the ballot. Let's get it done. Let's pass Save America Act. I think Republican candidates have had a hard time really making their case and really doing it in a way that really gets across to the everyday California voter. And, I think Steve Hilton, is doing creative new things, new messaging that I think is resonating. And so, I'm hopeful that he could overcome that gap that we've had, right? We do seem to be making progress every cycle, and, with our candidates. So, I think if we can put all those things together, it could equal, a Republican governor in this state. But it is a difficult. It's a difficult challenge. It's hard to not look at that. My good friend Brian Daly, ran for governor, and he did a great job. I think he made a great case. He did better actually than any Republican candidate has ever done. Finished with over 40% of the vote. But it is a difficult challenge here in California with all the dynamics that we just talked about.
Yeah, and I think Steve Hilton, just because of the name recognition, probably will do better than Brian Daly did, because outside of our part of the state, I bet if you mention the name Brian Daly, they'd just say, who, what, But Steve Hilton at least has some name recognition.
Well, like I said, Brian actually did, like I said, better than any Republican statewide candidate has done in a long time. I mean, he did very well. But again, I think Steve is doing some unique things. I certainly am going to be helping him any way I can, to get across that line. We need new leaders. I mean, look, Javier Becerra is going to be even worse than Gavin Newsom.
Oh, yes.
I mean, this guy, has spent his entire career pushing, these same, let's just call it what they are, socialist policies that have destroyed California, right? I mean, in many ways, he's even worse than Gavin in some of the policies that he's advocated for. And so we got to stop this guy from getting there. And look, I keep telling people all across the state when I talk to them, how much more can you take? You got the highest gas price in the nation. You got the highest electricity. We're last place in education. Our kids are not coming out being able to be successful. But nothing that this government is doing is working well. And when do we finally say, as Hilton's his recent ad says, enough is enough?
Yeah, exactly. All right, we're talking with James Gallagher, our new congressman here in District 1 in the North State, and we're going to be right back. And I want to ask you about state split and what happens to us after Prop 50 takes effect in November or January after the November election. So we'll be right back. Freedom in Action and Measure B, Letter B. Here's Bananarama.
Gordon, Coachmaster Collision. Although Coachmaster is recognized as the authority and specialist in frame and suspension, we are primarily your auto body and truck collision repair center. This includes all vehicles, Lexus, Honda, or pickup trucks. Our technicians are highly trained and have the most advanced equipment to ensure a complete and quality repair. With our knowledge in the insurance claim process, all we need is your claim number to handle your claim. Coachmaster has a great working relationship with all insurance companies. This ensures a complete repair with quality parts and a delay-free process. At Coachmaster, in our 50 years in business, we've experienced almost every situation imaginable in a claim. This experience and personal dedication to the repair of your vehicle sets Coachmaster apart from all other choices. And yes, if we can't fix it, no one can.
Learn more online at CoachmasterAutobody.com.
For 2 generations, that's more than 55 years, the Stroop family has sold and serviced the finest chainsaws available. And today, that same fine tradition continues, but with an ever-expanding selection of the finest names in yard, lawn, and small engine equipment. Whether chainsaws, mowers, blowers, pumps, trimmers, or generators, with names like Husqvarna, Steel, Honda, Snapper, Ferris, Shindaiwa, Bearcat, Walker, Wright, and BCS America, you can trust that you're getting the very best equipment available. And you should also know that the years of experience and expertise that the guys and gals at Stroop's Power Equipment bring to the table will help you choose the right tool for the job and keep your new equipment purring like a kitten. It's nice to know that Stroop's Power Equipment has your back. Visit Stroop's at 2236 Churn Creek Road, across and just north of the U.S. Post Office. Open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to closing. You can call them at 221-5155. That's Stroop's Power Equipment.
Locally owned, Big O Tires at 377 East Cypress Avenue is a lot more than just a tire store. They are your full-service repair shop in Reading. In addition to tires and wheels, if you need brakes, batteries, an oil change, or a tune-up, Jay and his crew can do it. Stop by for a free tire pressure check. They're open 6 days a week. And make sure you look for specials and money-saving coupons at BigO.com. Big O, the team you trust.
Shasta County, tired of filtered news? Welcome to Shasta Unfiltered, your trusted online newspaper for the North State. Straight facts on Reading politics, city council moves, local events, and the national stories that actually hit your wallet, like federal funding changes and job trends right here at home. No agenda, no paid spin disguised as news. Just honest reporting and the stories you need. Visit ShastaUnfiltered.com. Your community reported right.
What would you think if I sang out a tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song, and I'll try not to sing out of key. Oh, I get by with a little help from my friends. I get high with a little help.
All right, wouldn't be letter B, measure B without something by the Beatles, right? We're going to have Chris Kellstrom here right after 8 o'clock. He's already here, so we'll talk to him and then open phones at 8:30 and also at 8:30, right? And then after our 8:30 break, if you never heard Red Skelton do his version of the Pledge of Allegiance, we're going to do that too. That was somebody wanted to hear that last week, so going to do that this morning. And right now, we are talking with James Gallagher and our new congressman. And again, appreciate you being here this morning. Let's talk a little bit about your idea for splitting the state, which I think is unique because most people want to go north-south, but you want to go east-west. Why do you want to? Why that way?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I propose because I think, largely California, inland California, is the part that feels really overlooked. Certainly we know that in Northern California, but I'll tell you what, I hear that in the Central Valley. I hear that down in the Inland Empire, where they're frustrated that all the money and all the focus, all the policy is decided by L.A. and the Bay Area and the coast, right? And we get stuck with all those burdens. It's our truck drivers, that have to get rid of perfectly good trucks. They're, having to drive a truck at $7 a gallon diesel. It's our, hardworking folks, in the Inland Empire who need, air conditioning.
Yes.
In the summer, who face rolling blackouts, who have the highest energy costs in the nation. It's us in Northern California who deal with devastating wildfire after wildfire, and they tell us we can't, do anything about it, and that we have to, sorry, you've got to pay, all the costs that go with living with California. And oh, by the way, the wolves are going to get your cattle. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that I think people are frustrated with. And so I put this out there really as to lay down a gauntlet, to lay down a marker. I don't know that it will ultimately be all of that portion that would be part of a new state. But it's damn sure time that we start talking about it, because I think we've just all had enough. We just talked about the problems with our elections and how it's so lopsided and we really have no say. And now we have Prop 50, where they're basically depriving us of the ability to even have a representative of our choice. I mean, how much longer are we just going to take that? And instead say, no, we want something different. We want our own state, which is a very American thing, is fundamental. We came together as 13 original states so that each one of those states would have a say because they were each different. They had a different culture. They had different industries. The people had different values,
I want to ask you about Prop 50, but before we do, I just want to make sure we wrap up this state split. How do we get there? What do you have to do? Because I know you're talking about just bypassing the state legislature altogether. How would that work?
No, I'm not. No, I mean there is only one way to get there. It's in the Constitution. Article 4, Section 3, which says that the state legislature would have to give consent.
You are okay. You are saying that.
New state, and then the Congress would have to.
But how do we
And so I'm laying it out there to say, hey, look, let's start having the conversation. 7 counties in Northern California now have said, yes, we want to do that. I think more to come. I'm hearing of more and more who are going to join that and say, and I want to build the groundwork, for a new state, because quite honestly, with everything that we're facing, I think it's probably the only way we finally have self-determination.
How do we get there? Because do you really think the California legislature is going to ever get on board with this, considering they'd have to give up a lot of their power?
Well, let's say that we went to them and this came up for a vote, and we had 30 counties that said, yeah, we're pretty much done with this. We want to move in a different direction, right? I think it'd be hard for them to say no, right? And then I think we have to build the pressure. We have to build the groundwork to get there. Yeah, if I went in there tomorrow and asked for it, are they going to approve it?
No.
But I think I think we have to build the groundswell, right? And it's not just us, by the way. Eastern Oregon, Eastern Washington, they feel the same way. All the decisions get made for them by people who don't even live there.
Yeah, we all feel that way.
We don't even know what our issues are. And so it's not a new phenomenon, as we know. It's something that I think many communities are wrestling with. And it's like, look, I want to force the conversation. And Prop 50, I think, was just
the same argument.
I think it's the final straw.
Yeah, same argument. And I do want to ask you about Prop 50, because in January, you'll no longer be our representative here, because you'll be in District, I guess, year 1, and we're going to be 2. And most likely, I hope not, but most likely we're going to have Jared Huffman from the coast. So, what do we do here?
Well, first of all, we got to fight like hell, man, to try and win these races. Yes, they are stacked against us. They did this on purpose. They split us up into 3 different districts, to dilute our vote. That's all true, but I'm not going to give up. And I can tell you right now, I am fighting for the entire North State. I don't care what the lines say. I'm representing the entire North State. I'm going to continue to fight for every single one of our areas. And what I'm hoping is that I can pull this off. The district I'm running in, District 1, is the best makeup to win. We actually have we've done some polling, and we got a great shot to go win this thing. When we're running against the candidate, Mike McGuire, who is responsible for all of these things, highest gas prices, highest electricity prices. He voted to let child rapists out of jail. As long as they're 50 years old, get out of jail free card, according to Mike McGuire. And then, not to add insult to injury, he was, when these parole commissioners, who released, these child rapists from prison, when they came up for a reappointment, Mike McGuire said nothing. He didn't vote no, he didn't vote yes, he just abstained. He's a coward, and I think we've got a great contrast going in this election. I think we can beat him. But even if we don't, we're still going to fight hard, for this country, and for our nation and for our area. And I don't think we should ever just stop. We have to fight for our rights.
All right. Hey, we're out of time here, but I appreciate your time, and we could go a lot more into this if we had a little more time. So I'm going to have you on again. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
We'll do it.